Well, I think we should start with introductions, or actually finish with introductions, because we recorded that whole video, and then we recognized that we didn't introduce ourselves.
We were just like, hi, here we are. Hopefully you know us.
So my name is Casey Dubervik. I'm the owner and operator here of Revitalize Ketamine Clinic. Very passionate about mental health and wellness in general. I tell people that come through my doors, no one needs ketamine, no one needs an ego dissolution agent. There's a million other ways to get to a healthier headspace. But in general, our society isn't very conducive to those routes, and it can feel like bashing your head against the wall, nice drywall, and hitting a stud for decades and not getting anywhere. And so everything else I ever prescribed in psychiatry, like mood waveform, SSRIs, SNRIs, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, all it does is just squish that waveform. And those are your psyche's cries for help. Hey, what we're doing isn't working. The anxiety, the depression, hypervigilance, the personality disorders, the substance use disorders, even some psychoses can be rooted in trauma. And so being able to safely feel those is what I see every day here. And it's been so rewarding. I get the chills just every day I work, just watching people figure it out. And I'm so happy you're here. I really appreciate you. And
that leaves it to me. Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm the in-house talk therapist here at Revitalize Ketamine Clinic. And I'm also really excited that you're here. A little bit about me. This is not work that I ever saw myself doing or intentionally sought out. I found out that this clinic was available and came in to see what was happening and was like, hey, I'd like to be a part of what you're doing here. In my work here, what I see with the added benefit as ketamine for a tool is people are just more ready, if that makes sense, to get into whatever they've been holding on to for a really long time. And I really enjoy this work, and I'm excited that you're here. And I think that's it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you being here, and yeah, we're excited to be on this journey with you. All right. Nice. Well, I'm glad we're here together.
Me too.
Yeah, thanks for making this happen.
Yeah.
I know that we've been working together for a while now, and this has been a work in progress for a while, and I feel like we're finally ready to deliver it to the world. So yeah. Here we go.
Yay.
I'll let you take it over.
Yeah. And so welcome, whoever is watching this. We really are so happy you're here. This is a recorded version of a group that we have designed for new individuals who have either just started their ketamine infusions or are about to start their ketamine infusions. And we call it the Supercharge group. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So the purpose of this group is to answer some questions you might have that include why we do the series of 6, how you can get the most out of this, and what you can expect in coming in for your infusions and kind of throughout the process. So starting with this question of why the series of 6, it's like, why not 1? Why not 8? And so without doing an insane deep dive into research, what we want to say about this and what we want you to walk away knowing is the series of 6 is very intentional based on current research demonstrating that provides us with the best outcomes. One of the advantages is with 1 infusion, it's difficult for us to individualize your treatment, right? So if you come in and you have an infusion and it's not enough of a dose, then the next time you come in, the individual that you're working with is going to ask you about that, and we can adjust the dosage depending on what you need. And really, the main takeaway around this series of 6 and why it demonstrates the best outcomes is it's capitalizing on this period of neuroplasticity. And Casey, can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kristen. That was a good segue into how this works, right? So we know with on a functional MRI, we can actually see those new dendrites forming in people's minds within 2 to 5 minutes of starting the ketamine infusion. So it's pretty exciting, just from a purely chemical perspective. We see a great opportunity to use these treatments as a catalyst for change. That being said, when you just do a single infusion, you only get about 7 to 10 days of really good neuroplasticity. And I like to think of neuroplasticity as fresh fallen snow on old sled tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can think of those old sled tracks as a lot of the reasons that people are coming in to see us.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of negativistic thoughts about ourselves. There's a lot of feeling like the world is an unsafe place. And again, I tell people no regrets.
Yep.
Like we're all here on purpose, and those coping strategies were very helpful at a certain time in these people's lives. But at a certain point, they recognize that that is no longer a helpful coping strategy and is actually possibly damaging relationships, which could be otherwise healthy relationships, or just making things a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
And so think about those negativistic tracks as a sled trail on snow, and you go down a sled trail a couple times, it gets pretty hard lined. Go down it a million times, it's basically like a toboggan trail, an ice track, and almost impossible to get off of that. And so with one infusion, you get maybe 2 to 3 inches of fresh fallen snow, and you get 7 to 10 days to kind of work on things. With the series of 6, you're getting like 5 feet of fresh fallen snow. There's a stacked effect. And so it's really an opportunity to really change your mind, quite literally. And so what we see with that series of 6 is much more robust neuroplasticity, as you can see on that graph, as well as a longer duration. And so, really great opportunity to go ahead and take advantage of all the services that we provide here, the integration group that we offer, the other individual integration counseling that we have, the somatic experiencing therapy, the positive intelligence program, the neurofeedback, the PRRT. There's a lot of cool things that can really supercharge these results. But again, we know the science of habit creation and habit breaking in human beings, pretty wide variability, but up to 80 days to create those new habits and break those old habits. And so, yeah, that's a common question we get. Why do we do a series of 6? Why not one? And so, as you can see, in the graph, 10 days, that's not long enough for most people to get that opportunity to really change how they think and how they perceive themselves in this space. When you do the series of 6, ketamine, real high efficacy, but it's not 100%, just like any other treatment, much higher than anything else I've ever given. And I'm very passionate about it, I think, as everyone here knows.
A little bit.
But when we first start, again, right before someone's first treatment, we do what's called a PHQ-9 and a GAD-7. So kind of standardized depression and anxiety scores. We do some other assessments as well, but we also do an objective assessment of how someone's just feeling and looking. We get some feedback from their friends and family if they're around. And we also obviously get the patient's subjective report of how they're feeling. So we do that right before someone gets started, and we do that same scenario right before their 6th treatment. And so when we do see a shift, when we do see a movement of that needle, then we're going to recommend a 1-month booster, 30 days out from that 6th treatment. And that gives people a full 80 plus days of really good neuroplasticity. 80 days, the absolute minimum you get with this treatment protocol, the series of 6 and the 1-month booster. Obviously, we're not going to recommend an expensive treatment for someone who hasn't noticed any benefits or gains from these series of 6. Most people notice a significant positive shift after or during their very first infusion, as you've seen. And some people, though, however, won't notice much of a shift until 1 to 2 weeks after their 6th treatment. So it's important to kind of stay connected if there's kind of a downstream connection. But again, we want the best for everyone, and we're team you guys, but everyone's a little different. And so the series of 6 and the 1 month booster, that gives us that full 80 plus days. Then again, as I like to tell people, a lot of the Western medical model last 60 or 70 years is kind of soul draining in that it's a potentiated illness model. So pharmaceutical industry, insurance industry, and most providers and most agencies are incentivized to keep people ill, keep them on daily medications, and keep them coming back forever. Even in talk therapy, people are expected to see their talk therapist weekly or biweekly, like kind of indefinitely. And I'm not a fan of that plan, as you well know. And so we're working off a wellness plan here. So after that series of 6 and the 1 month booster, ideally we never see someone again. Like I want to see them on the trails or the grocery store, that sort of thing. And so, I want you to fly free. We're going to give you a bunch of tools so we don't necessarily have to see someone again. That being said, we like to be upfront and honest with people and talk about those 3 types of trauma that I like to address: the historical trauma, the intergenerational trauma, and the societal trauma. So most people are able to parcel through the majority of their not only their historical trauma, but also intergenerational trauma to large part during this series. That being said, the societal trauma is still going strong. And so we're sending people back out to a fairly non-conducive environment for mental health. And so, that pushes people back on average about quarterly, every 3 months, for just a single one booster, one off. The evidence says you shouldn't ever have to do an induction series again, as long as you stay on top of your mental wellness. So my advice always is, after that series of 6 and the 1 month booster, again, don't come see us if you don't need us. Like, I'd love to be out of a job. And there's enough ways to find things to do. But when and if you start noticing a decline, and it looks different in everyone. Some people's tone of voice, some people it's like, hey, traffic wasn't really crappy last week, but now all of a sudden traffic is really challenging. I know, and it wasn't a shift in the population demographic with any coming back down or anything like that. And so at that point, my advice is to call us or text us, set up an appointment for 1 to 2 weeks out from there, and then really at that point double down on those augmentation strategies that work for you, that we're going to be going over today to a large extent and that are in your book. And then if those pull you out, awesome, call us and cancel. I don't want to see you if I don't have to. But think of this as a tool in your toolbox that you can use when you need to. And honestly, a lot of people build this in as self-care, about quarterly. Some people see us annually, some people every 6 months. Some people never see us again, which again is my hopes for everyone. I want everyone to be in a happy, healthy space. And then some people don't see us at all during the spring, the summer, and the fall, and then they see us monthly during the winter. Big surprise there.
Yeah.
But so that was my long-winded neuroplasticity answer there.
No, that's super helpful. That's what we need. We need all of that info. And I think if you want to go to the next,
sure.
I think it also touches on, the bigger question of really in this whole presentation, what we want you to take away is being really grounded in the understanding of not just why the 6, but why ketamine to begin with. And Casey, you touched on some of that, right? Like mapping out this understanding of, I don't have the same background as Casey. And so I need visuals to be able to communicate what it is, like what's the whole purpose behind ketamine? Like, why is it helpful? What is it doing? And that visual of these tracks in the snow that we've been going down for forever, that were developed to try to help us over time, and then eventually became not so helpful, though we've been doing them for so long that it's really difficult to get out of them. And we go down them so fast that, and speaking to the outside world, just not necessarily lending itself to there being safety to get out of and experiment with.
Absolutely.
Doing new behaviors. Ketamine providing this other landscape, right? Several inches of fresh fallen snow as an opportunity to do things differently in life, things that help us to feel more like ourselves, to have an overall sense of well-being, to show up in the world in the way that matters to us. And so, yeah, I think we created this being right in the middle, because that's really the highlight of the. If you take nothing else from the presentation, please know that the whole point of this is to be able to capitalize on opportunity to do things differently in life. And I think that's all I want to say about that part.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, safe to feel safe,
Yeah.
which isn't, unfortunately, something that some people have ever experienced.
Yeah. So again, more with some visuals, right? These charts are demonstrating the progression of how much ketamine should play into your treatment. So if you see to the left, that first chart, blue is ketamine treatments, red is reducing toxicity, yellow is wellness living, and green is making things better. And as you can see at the beginning, ketamine is playing a significant role in overall treatment and moving toward wellness. And as we move throughout the series of 6, you'll see in treatment 2, ketamine is reduced, and reducing toxicity and building wellness and making things better is growing. And it's not to say that, this is going to look different for everybody. It's not like these numbers or those percentages are going to translate from person to person. The takeaway is we don't want to see ketamine throughout the series of 6 being the only component of your wellness. And then into ongoing, that would be after the series of 6 and moving forward. Ketamine is greatly reduced, kind of like what you were speaking to, where in someone's overall wellness or self-care, that they may build that in quarterly. Though in ongoing, making things better, wellness living, reducing toxicity take up a much greater portion of overall treatment and approach to wellness than ketamine alone.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like to think of the ketamine treatments as just a tool in that tool chest, but it's like the 50-pound sledgehammer. You don't need it every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if at this point you're wondering, great, so we understand why the series of 6, we understand ketamine being really rooted in that being a catalyst for change, right? It isn't this magical medication that is going to implement all of these changes in your world. It's a tool that can give us access. The way I think of it is like it gives us access to help us get out of our own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I've seen is a lot of people are doing a lot of those things, or trying to, but there's just so much stuff they're holding on to that they need a safe space to be able to let go of that and process through it. And ketamine gives that, where unlike anything else that we currently have in modern medicine, that safe space to let go, so that they can actually, those activities, the wellness living, the reducing toxicity, and the things that they're already trying to do for themselves, like they can actually take root and be effective again.
Yeah. So we've put together, in the booklet that you have, there's a whole list of ways to supercharge this whole journey. And it's a lot. And so we've tried to break it down into a little bit more digestible components, right? So it isn't this long list of things to do where you're like, hey, that's so much. So on infusion days, really, we just want the focus to be trusting the process, setting an intention, which we will get to, and resting, truly resting. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of resources being recruited to be able to provide that new landscape of fresh fallen snow.
Hold on for a second.
Oh yeah.
I just want to make sure. My phone rang, and I just want to make sure it didn't stop recording. It is. It's still recording. We're good.
Yay.
All right. Thank
Cool.
you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that would have been like,
yeah,
and
20
we're
minutes
talking
later.
to nobody.
Oh.
Aw. In between infusions, so and this is like in any schedule, right? Ideally, the schedule that we're following is the series of 6, where that's around 2 infusions a week over the course of 3 weeks. Though, generally speaking, in between infusions, we want the focus to be integration, right? Having that safe space and coming in for the infusions is wonderful, and that's just one component of being able to utilize ketamine as a tool. The whole point is to be able to take what's coming up, or what's able to be processed, and then being able to integrate into our lives how we want to be living. And so we offer a bunch of options here in house for integration processes. One is with me. Hi, hello. I'm the in-house therapist here at Revitalize Ketamine Clinic. We also have Jeffrey provides somatic experiencing, which is more of a like a body-based processing is the best way that I can describe it. We're going to have later on more recordings to have more detailed information about the various practitioners that work with us. Another option is we've got Jeffrey, we've got me.
Skylar.
Skylar provides neurofeedback. Sarah provides PRRT, which is primal reflex release technique, which is also a different body-based work for integration.
Yeah, we keep so much of our trauma, like the issues are in the tissues, right? Bessel van der Kolk, who, had groundbreaking work, mixed bag on him personally, but not about that. Anyways, it's true. Our bodies carry a lot of our trauma. And that's why, traditional talk therapy isn't always the best option for everyone. And I think people who have had traditional talk therapy, who see Kristen after ketamine, the snow globe is well shaken up. And so oftentimes we'll see people, I saw a talk therapist for years, it wasn't helpful. And they see Kristen and they're like, oh, this is different. And it's not because Kristen's markedly different than most therapists. It's because they're in a plastic state where they have a lot more insight. They're able to do that work a little bit better. But some people still, they just don't like talking about their stuff. And that's a real thing. Not only is it real that you don't enjoy that talking, but for some people, it's just not helpful. So much of your feelings aren't necessarily able to be articulated with words. And so those other processes can be more powerful forms of integration for some folks. I like to say human language is a huge reducing valve of the human experience.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Some people, everybody learns differently. And so I think I love that we have those as options just to try, right? If talk therapy isn't it, then don't do any more of that. If that's not helpful and it doesn't, it's not moving you toward the direction you want to go, then there are other ways to be able to integrate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So also in between infusions, while integration is the kind of the main focus, we also want you to go outside, stick to a schedule. We say stick to a schedule. We hear a lot of times people are kind of just in this, day to day, not really sure what to do. So just sticking to waking up at the same time, going to sleep at the same time, hopefully eating at regular intervals throughout the day.
Trying to take care of yourself in
Yeah.
general, just trying to treat yourself right. If you need rest, get more rest.
Yeah. And we recommend, in terms of integration, however you're processing what's coming up in your ketamine infusions, for once a week, right? Ideally, you would want to see someone, whether that's for talk therapy or for somatic experiencing or for neurofeedback, um, within that 24 to 48 hours after the infusion. And you can see somebody more than once a week, though the reason we recommend one is we don't want all of what ketamine comprises in your wellness plan to be taking up a larger portion of the pie, right? We want you to be spending time with the people that you care about around you, with pets, with being able to go outside, doing the things that you enjoy.
Yeah, we see diminishing returns when it turns into a job, right?
Yeah.
When it turns into work, when you're like, oh, I got to go to this therapy and this therapy and this therapy. It's like, oh, I'm kind of overwhelmed. It's logistically, it's challenging to get here twice a week with our busy lives that we've set up for ourselves in our society. And then on top of that, you need to do an integration session. Well, we highly recommend it at least once a week, an individual session. And then we also have our group integration, our processing group, that occurs right after this in-person meeting that would normally occur during this time frame that we're recording instead. And it's awesome. I'm having a blast. Thank you. We're going to start a podcast too, right? That's happening.
Yay!
Yeah, that'll be fun. But then, there's so many forms of integration. Like, I like to be really clear that talk therapy, highly advisable, integration therapy, highly advisable, having someone that's devoted to you and you're spending that time with them for 50 minutes and you are paying for that service. People quote unquote pay attention, and it's legit. When you've got resources devoted to something, you're gonna put more energy into it. In general, that's just how we work, and you got to take advantage of that. But they're pretty reasonable pricing, and then again, we got the package pricing so that we want you to fly. We want a graduation date in mind. We don't want you to see us indefinitely. The other forms of integration I want to touch on are like journaling and artwork, and outside time I would say is a form of integration too. So yeah,
absolutely. And then that moves us into not just strictly for after the series of 6, kind of starting to build throughout and then continuing to build ongoing, is nourishing your body. We recommend trying to avoid as much as possible what Casey refers to as the SAD diet, standard American diet, just insanely processed food. Trying to decrease that as much as possible. Moving your body in whatever way feels good to you, whether that's going on a hike or walking the dogs or dancing. Big fan of dance parties. Also create, right? We want to tap into this creative side is another way that really helps, I think, probably with integration.
Absolutely.
And also I've heard you speak to neuroplasticity in that way, in creative processes.
Yeah, 100%. Like, again, that human language being that reducing valve. I often give people that homework after an infusion because they're trying to articulate this feel, this occurrence that they tapped into during their infusion, and they just can't find any words that even scratch the surface on what they felt. But a lot of times you can express that through creative movement, through dance, through drawing pictures in the mud with a stick. You can do like watercolors, you can do artwork, you can sing and dance and play music, and you can articulate some of those feels much better through that kind of release. It can be out into the ethos, or it can be something tangible. But yeah, that integration sometimes is more powerful for folks. And what I do tell people when they're really good at something artistically is to try to do something they're bad at, just because then you get out of the motor memory of things. You're like, oh, I like to start my paintings like this. I like to start my charcoal drawings like this. It's like, well, yes, you do. But when was the last time you finger painted?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
something like that.
absolutely. And that reminds me too is whenever you are in the clinic, um, it's some of our favorite things is to show and speak to um, previous individuals who have gone through the infusions, um, have left artwork here in the clinic on our walls. So that's cool too, just
Yeah,
as a
for
side
sure.
note.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We'd love to tell you all the stories of
Yeah.
all of them.
Oh, wait, you can't go forward yet because out of all of this, ways to get the most out of your infusions, trusting the process and resting and integrating and moving and eating and creating. If you take nothing else, please, please, please remember to celebrate. We see so often there's this expectation that is um, sometimes not even consciously
Mm-hmm.
set at the beginning.
Right.
And then when someone doesn't have that experience, they are so quick to dismiss all of the work that they've done and all of the progress that they've made. And in my observation, change happens often slowly and in these like really small shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really want you to focus on that and to celebrate even just showing up for an infusion and taking that time for yourself and maybe just like taking a nap that day,
Yeah,
you
absolutely. I
know?
love that you touched on that because, you know, in that long list that I made, steps to supercharge on the bottom there is that, you know, we're all our own worst critics,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, you know, what did they say? That expectations are resentments booked in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like there's a ton of really good tools on there. They're all evidence based. And we know that they can have market improvement on someone's wellness. But like you said, incremental changes, and really, if you're going to start something, not everything on that list is for everyone. Try
Mm-hmm.
to determine what is things that you'd like to make part of your lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
and focus on those ones. And part of making that your lifestyle is slow and steady changes. We know crash diets are called that for a reason, right? You crash on a diet, you crash off a diet. And so I like to tell people, you know, like, don't beat yourself up. Like, really build yourself up for all the successes. You know, that graph with the 95% ketamine, for some people it's 95% ketamine, all 6 infusions to start off with, because they just are that stuck and they need that reset. Like you said, you know, that series of 6 gives us an opportunity to titrate dosing up and just get to that sweet spot or down, or sometimes all around. But you know, we're not going to browbeat you if you didn't meditate for 20 minutes. You know, we want to celebrate with you. And that being said, this is for you, by you. We're not your healers. We're not fixing things for you. We're turning that key so that you have the space and the capacity again to do that work.
Mm. Wow, it's like you've gone through this presentation before because I think you just set up a segue
Oh,
for
did
the
I?
next.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Yeah,
I may have
you
been here
did.
before.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, so that brings us to what can you expect in going into your infusions? And so, what Casey was just talking about really is I think it's important to touch on around um, how the what you can expect was put in place. Like everything about it is intentional to support coming from a place of really understanding that we are not your healers and um, we're not setting any expectations for what that needs to look like. What we are doing is creating an environment and a whole process that is centered in allowing you to be your own best healer and to be completely immersed in your experience. And so
and we want to empower you
yeah.
to remember that you have that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
It gets beat out of us and crushed down,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always in there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a little spark, that can really bring it back to life.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, it can feel like it doesn't exist when you've just been so browbeat and so stuck for so long. But that is in there for everyone, the
Mm-hmm.
capacity to be better. Again, I don't like PTSD. I only like that diagnosis of trauma, but I only like post traumatic stress injury.
Mm. Yeah, language is important in how we view ourselves, how we view the world, and how we um, view our capacity to keep moving forward. Um, and so, in what you can expect around um, being set up to be totally immersed and moving toward wherever it is that you're trying to go, whatever wellness looks like for you, I think it's evident in these 4 areas, right? Setting, sustainability, and safety. Alliteration is key. So, what we mean by set is that we give you a whole host of tools to set you up for success. And a part of this is getting really clear around what your intention is for being here. And we'll go over there's a guide for setting an intention when you come in for your infusion. And the individual that you're working with, whatever team member you're working with for that day, is also going to go over it with you at the beginning. And the whole point of that is for you to stay connected for why you're here and what you want to get out of this. Like Casey said, this is for you and by you. And it may seem like we're really like repeating ourselves here, though it's really important. What we see a lot is people may come in and say, oh, I'm doing this for my kids, or I'm doing this for my partner. And that creates a whole different set of expectations and experience that is very different from this is why I'm here and this is what I want to get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in setting, I think we're different than other places in our process in that we want you to be as comfortable as humanly possible. And the way that we go about that is not only conducive to the best treatment outcomes, but it's very intentional around making sure that you feel safe and comfortable in where you're at. And so what that looks like is we have noise canceling headphones with a playlist of your choice from what we have.
Well
right.
cultivated
Yeah.
playlists that are conducive to real healing and growth.
Yeah. Eye shades for
immersion. So we know the more we reduce the external stimuli, the more healing work you can do. So set and setting are important with any sort of ego dissolution agent, and this is that safety. And so the setting that we give you is a very comfortable, very safe environment where you can do that work. And we help you with stuff like this to have that set to go into that setting to do that work. We're holding space for people the entire time so that if things come up that need help processing through, we're here for everyone in every capacity. And we do some light integration after the infusion where we touch base on how the experience was for you, as well as someone was able to hit on their intention at all as far as why they're here. Sometimes it's a very roundabout way. And this can be really scary for people because it's just so different than anything else we've ever given. We're definitely on the spear tip as far as being groundbreaking in our approach and our technique and our delivery model. And we're seeing the best treatment outcomes. We're breaking the national trend in regards to reduction of symptomology, and it's just awesome. I'm glad we're a team.
Yeah. Also, thank you for clarifying on all of those points, like the why behind these things are in place. more to like the comfort piece, there's, comfy reclining chairs. The lights won't be illuminated like
Yeah, it'll be
this.
pretty dark.
You'll have blankets to be cozy. And in terms of, want to speak to sustainability, we're really aware that this is a large investment on many fronts, not just financial, time, and energy. And like you were saying, it's a lot just to even consider being open to that, because it is such a unique experience.
Yeah.
And so we just want you to know that we are not in the business of, hey, here, have some ketamine and good luck, right? We really want these treatments to be positively life-changing for you, and we have many things that are available to you to be able to individualize and experiment with what's going to work best for you, not just throughout this process of the infusion series, and the idea being also ongoing, right? Like what continuing to build what wellness looks like for you. And
yeah, absolutely. So the general consensus is, with all the ego dissolution agents, which ketamine falls into, probably is the second best well tolerated. MDMA is probably the first best well tolerated, and then everything else falls after those. And MDMA, we applied for that program, so hopefully we'll be able to offer that when that becomes available next year, 2024, 2025. We'll see. But really important to just recognize that we've got you. This is a safe space. You'll have your vital signs being monitored the entire time. One of the practitioners, will be in the room with you for the first 20 minutes of your first infusion, 15, 20 minutes. We'll be watching your vital signs, making sure that you're comfortable and safe. We'll be in and out of the room to check on you to make sure everything's good. You'll have a call bell so you can get us in there. You'll have an IV in your arm. You'll have a blood pressure cuff. You'll have a pulse oximeter on your finger, and you'll have a 3-lead EKG. We'll do an assessment up front. Again, make sure you're safe and everything. Ketamine's on the World Health Organization's list of essential medications as an anesthetic because it's so safe. It's the best resource limited anesthetic. It's the only anesthetic that actually supports the cardiovascular system. So we see a rise in the blood pressure and heart rate oftentimes, which is good because we see with that an increase in what's called the cerebral perfusion pressure. So you get more of the ketamine across the blood-brain barrier and thereby get more neuroplasticity. So
wow.
Yeah, some science. Woo.
That's why you're here. Awesome. Yeah. So of everything there, we hope that helps you to feel a little bit more prepared, a little bit more at ease, and to know that we got you. And by we, I mean the team members that are there that will be involved in the ketamine infusion process, because I am not qualified to do so.
She's our integrator.
Yeah.
Helper integrator.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's another thing, is like we're really working on focusing on empowering you. Like, you've got this, and we're going to support you with your remembrance of that.
Nice. Well said. Can you go to the next slide?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So then the rest of this presentation is kind of just an overview of the book that you get at the beginning, because there's a lot of information in there, and you may have like glanced through it and been like, yeah, that's so much information. I'm not reading that. And our expectation isn't that you're going to read it from front to back. That's why we created this, just an overview to let you know what's in there. That I like to think of it as using it as a starting point if questions come up throughout your infusion process of like, okay, well, what if I do want to try some somatic experiencing? Where do I look for that? Or, hey, I'm having some trouble sleeping. Hey, there's information about that in the book. So there are some guides in there. We call them flight instructions, which would be for the day of your infusion. So if you're feeling a little bit nervous and just want some more information, that might help you to read through that and feel a little bit more prepared. Also know that when you come in, someone will be right here with you and they will go over it with you. There's also that intention setting guide, like we talked about. When you come in, someone will ask you, what's your intention for today? And that's basically just getting connected with, what's your why? Why are you here? And what do you want to get out of this?
That's so important.
Yeah.
The why, because that's why.
That's the whole point.
Yeah. Of everything. Yeah. And so once you find that why and you can articulate it, then everything else will come together.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the correct why and a big enough why, then things will start improving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're also going to add to the book, I don't think it's in there yet, but for a loved one support, we get a lot of questions a lot of times from individuals, family members, like, hey, I have no idea what this is like, and how do I support my person that I care about? And so we'll have some more of those resources in there. Also, just to give you an overview of what we have in-house and in the community. Again, right? We have lots of different options for in-house integration. That's me for talk therapy. I'm Kristen. Jeffrey for somatic experiencing, Skylar for neurofeedback. I didn't update the PowerPoint I see there. It says massage, though it's
She's
different.
trained as a massage therapist, but this isn't quite as handsy as far as like really working your tissues. But it's really good at that somatic release.
Yes, so that would be the PRRT with Sarah. And then also, you touched on a little bit, which I just want to reiterate here, that we have groups that are free to individuals who are going through the infusion series. So this first group is kind of the how to succeed, how to get the most out of this. We call it the supercharge group. After this group on Fridays at 10:30 a.m., we meet in person for our processing group. And that's really just designed for individuals who are going through or who have gone through the infusion series as a way to connect with other people who can share a similar experience, because it is quite unique.
Absolutely. Yeah, that shared experience model can be so helpful because, ultimately we're clinicians. Neither of us have done any ketamine. And so it's nice to be able to be supportive in that and also be, very curious and not hold any of our own expectations of other people's experiences and just be able to be curious. And so that's not true of all of our staff. There's and they're very open to sharing if you have questions. But with that, I think it's really cool to see this group evolving and seeing the value, the immense value that some of our clients are sharing that they're gleaning from this group. Obviously, we're going to give precedence to those people that are going through the induction series. We're trying to determine if we're going to cap it at 6 or 8 people, which is, I think more than enough right now. We haven't hit those numbers. But we want that to be available to people. And as, interest increases, we'll add another group on. And I'm excited to, be able to offer that to our community because it's shown to have such value for our folks.
It's really powerful. I really enjoy our group days. It's such a lovely it's just such a lovely thing to be a part of, to see different people coming together, sharing their experiences, not just in the ketamine infusions, just in life. I don't know of any substitute, so I'm really glad that we're able to provide that.
Yeah, me too. I just see it just being more and more valuable as it evolves, and people have expressed that to me. I think it's really important to recognize and to point out that the integration group, the processing group, is only for the clients going through. So family are not welcome. It's just for the clients going through individually. And they've had to have at least one infusion before they can start that. the How to Succeed class, aka the Supercharge group. That's this, and that we not only welcome but advise and would love to have family members and loved ones show up to that, because it's really awesome to be part of a tribe and to feel supported.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as much as people want to be involved with helping their loved one help themselves, like, we love that involvement.
Yeah, it's really helpful
Mm-hmm.
to have that support. Um, so other um, things that are outlined available to you in this book are community practitioners. If for whatever reason you're like, wow, I'm at that clinic so much, I don't want to see those people any other days of the week. or
Right.
or maybe like scheduling doesn't line up for you.
Mm-hmm.
We have plenty of wonderful practitioners out in the community who also provide talk therapy, somatic experiencing, acupuncture, which we don't have at the clinic. So that's cool if you're into that. Another resource that's in there is a list of books, recommended books that Casey has curated. And what's great about those is almost all of them are available through the library for free, either through ebook or audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
if you like to read,
yeah, absolutely. And so the Libby, Libby, it's the public library app, and you can check those out right on there, most all of those. And so, that can be a good form of integration while you're, kind of learning and doing stuff. You can do the power of now with Eckhart Tolle, and learn a little bit more about mindfulness and how to integrate that into your life. That it's a daily practice. And, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I like how that one really closely aligns to Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent's book that's on there. He's just a great orator, has an amazing voice, and has an amazing story too. All the hardships he's overcame. There's the How to Heal from Trauma. I, you know, Body Keeps the Score is an excellent book, but I don't really like people to read that, just because anyone with trauma, that's tremendously activating. And so, I'm not a big fan of that book for people to read, to advise it. The DBT book, the Dialectical Behavioral Therapy book, I think that one's really good. I mean, I could go on about all of them. They're all really good if you have any specific questions about them.
Yeah, the list just keeps growing.
It
Every week.
I
gotta update the book.
I got another good one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that'll just, if you want some book recommendations, just ask. Other things that are in there that I think a lot of people don't know, because there's so much information in the book, is that there's also some really helpful tools in there. So like I was saying, if you're having some trouble sleeping, or you go to sleep and you wake up in the middle of the night, or anything around those, there's some really great sleep protocols that Casey has put in there for you to try. There's also some awesome calming techniques. And then if you just are wanting to do maybe in between integration, whatever work you're doing with someone else, if things are coming up and it's like, whoa, I don't even know what to do with this, there's a really great tool called it's under the ACCEPT acronym in there.
Yeah, there's really good exercise in there too. I really like that page. I'm very passionate about that page in particular. And I just want to say it all right now, but I won't. I'll record that individually.
Yeah.
But that forgiveness is super powerful in there. The remembrance that forgiveness isn't for anyone else, it's for you. That allows you to move on and to grow, because holding on to resentments, like that Buddhist saying, like holding on to resentments is like swallowing poison and expecting someone else to die. This doesn't work.
No, it's not very effective.
No. And that doesn't mean you can't set out very healthy boundaries for yourself after that forgiveness, to not let anything like that ever occur again. But that ACCEPT acronym cycle, I'm really a big proponent of that, because you can work through so much stuff by yourself. And some of that stuff may be intergenerational, where you don't necessarily have an historical story, or they may be before you started forming concrete memories. But again, those issues are in the tissues, and a lot of times those will come out in this infusion series. And that's the big part of this ketamine medicine, is that it's giving you space to process those really hard feels that haven't been safe to feel ever. And so that ACCEPT acronym cycle, I think that's a really good one, you can actually divide your life into fifths and do that like weekly. And normally there's kind of a theme for each one of those stages of your life that can be really, really beneficial to process through at your own pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's everything that's in the book.
Okay.
So we can go to the next one. That brings us to
Oh, I love that one.
I know
It's
it's your
my
favorite.
favorite.
So we like to end on this note of what is good for you is good for the universe. It kind of ties everything that we talked about up in a nice bow.
Yeah, it's so perfect. Well, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Mhm.
We really appreciate your time and energy and taking the extra time to watch this. I think hopefully it was worth your while. I think there's a lot of value to be gleaned in there, and now you can watch it like 10 more times. There's some funny joke that you're like, wow, I really need to relive that with them. It'll be amazing for all of us. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you, and thanks for trusting us with your care and your loved ones' care, and we're happy that you're here.
Yeah, I will echo that and say we will look forward to seeing you in person. See you.
Excellent. Bye. Oh, look at that. Trusting you.
Well, you already said it.
All right, I did. I did say that.
So
yeah, so it can be done.
we didn't need to have it.
All right.